In each episode, you'll learn about marketing from the experiences of our experts.
These are skills, these are things that you learn when you do. How do you help people feel the product or experience the product? What really matters is how much are you able to solve via problems.
What do you think is the right way to approach when you have 2 lakhs, when you have 4 lakhs, and when you have 10 lakhs, right? Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first ever episode of Unwrapping Marketing, one piece at a time. Let me tell you a little bit about myself and what I'm trying to do with the podcast. This podcast is all about marketing. The hosts that we are trying to bring here, most of them are marketers. Some of them are founders and CEOs of SaaS companies. Maybe some companies into consulting and services, but mostly we're focusing on B2B tech, marketing and growth, GTM, and all of that. So in each episode, you will learn about marketing from the experiences of our experts. With that said, I'm really excited to have my friend Karthik Subramaniam on the call. This is a unique episode because it's one Karthik talking to the other Karthik. I'm not sure we'll be ever be in a situation like this. He's been working with me probably about 3 years to 3.5 years now. I worked as a consultant and he was a full-time employee, and then he worked with me for close to a year. And then he's got about 18 years experience in the space. He's worked with large companies, medium-sized companies, smaller companies, early stage, growth stage, right? Like pretty much, most, big and small companies as well, right? He specialized in, 0 to 1, and he scaled content engine for a lot of early stage companies and late stage companies. Most recently, he's worked as, marketing consultant for companies like Atlan, Doximo, and Animaker. Um, so interesting journey there, Karthik. I've known you for about 4 years now. We started talking through LinkedIn, and then we connected. Used to chat a bit on the phone, and then I started consulting for one of the companies that you work for, right? And we become pretty close, and then we started working together after that. So tell me exactly where it all started for you, and how did you become a content marketer, and why?
Great, thank you. First of all, thanks, Karthik, for inviting me. It's a pleasure, as always, talking to you. Yeah, answering your question about how I became a content marketer. So, when at the beginning of my career, I used to work for an equity research company called UBS, and we used to track some of the large cap software companies in the US, like Microsoft, Adobe, Oracle. And what happened was we used to write long, very long research reports. Now, some of these reports could be 40 pages, 50 pages, 70 pages. I don't know how many we wrote, but so all the buyers of these reports were hedge funds, people who had a lot of money. They looking for avenues to invest. They used to buy these reports. They used to download these reports. Now, um, the big fact that we discovered, no matter how long, how big the research report is, how good an equity research analyst you are, no matter how much of your predictions have gone right in the stock market, unless unless the first page of your research report is actually conveying what you really want. It's really outlandish, or how do I call it? It really stands out. Unless you create that kind of an impact on the first page of your equity research report, nobody's going to buy it. So that was a very humbling experience, and I wish I had paid a lot more attention to my copywriting skills back then, because that's where the whole thing starts. Um, the first page, like some people, I don't remember. I think it is one of the very famous advertisers of yesteryears. He said this, like the first line should lead people to read the second line. The second line should lead people to read the third line. So I think it was David Ogilvy, I'm not sure, but that was the whole purpose of copywriting, right? The first page, the first line, the first page should take you to the second. The second should take you to the third, and that's how you grow. That's how you make people read your report and fall in love with the reports that you write. So that was cathartic, because nobody teaches you. No school, no business school, no Ivy League schools ever teach you. These are skills. These are things that you learn when you do things on your own. So yeah, that's where I started, and then along the way, I've been working with the Indian IT service industry for. I was there for about more than 10 years, working in companies like Cognizant and Accenture. In the last 5 years, yes, I have been with mostly B2B SaaS brands, and I've thoroughly enjoyed content writing. A lot of times, I have written content with just my basic research, without any skills. Nothing was there, but some of those content pieces are ranking even now. So that gives me a heady feeling. But yeah, that's my introduction.
Nice, nice, very nice. Nice. Um, so, what is the little bit about content strategies, right? So, why do you think they succeed and why do you think they fail, based on your experience? For content strategy, probably see the end objective for what do you think is the end objective for a content, and why do you think when you're probably preparing a content strategy, what are the things to be let's say marketers, right? So what do they have to keep in mind before creating a content strategy, and why do you think they'll fail and why do you think they succeed?
Okay, so the first thing that marketers should keep in mind while creating the content strategy is, um, do your homework. By homework, do your research. I would suggest you just spend time in the trenches, and that is, listen to sales calls. I mean, wherever you can get information about your buyers, talk to your buyers. If possible, do a survey, get into calls with buyers. Who's reading your content, and so lot of times, as writers, we make the mistake that, oh, you know what, I have this bias. I think this is what people want to read or people want to consume or people want to view, but that's not what how it works in the market. So, the classic funnel that we've all been taught, right? It's the awareness, it's the consideration, it's bottom of the funnel and all that. That still exists, and it's almost 100-year-old concept, the funnel itself. But things have changed. People don't go through the funnel in a linear manner. It doesn't work. It never works. People sometimes
Hmm.
see your LinkedIn ad. Somebody else talks to you. Somebody in the market talks to you about the brand, and then you read it somewhere. You come across a webinar. You come across a TikTok video, or that's how people get familiar, and that's where the whole thing. That's where the content starts working. So for a content strategy to succeed, research about your personas, research who's buying, who's taking the buying decision, why are they buying, what has led them to this decision, why are they not buying somebody else's product or service. So I think buyer persona research is number one here. There's no substitute to that. Don't get any biases in. The founder may have a bias, the CEO may have a bias, the CMO may have a bias, but that doesn't count for anything. Ultimately, what matters is what your customers want to hear, what are their problems. Research that, and then start writing. And then that's the number one piece I would say in terms of content strategy. The second is, how do you want so in fact, I've seen people create content like random pieces. Social media,
Hmm.
they just put random social posts without any understanding of who's reading it, why should somebody read it. I think that's where distribution comes into play. When you create content, at the same time, you should have already thought about how you're going to distribute it. Where are you going to distribute it? How, in the sense, like, imagine there's a blog that's doing very good for you. It's giving you a lot of leads, is giving you a lot of traffic. Now, instead of letting it live on its own, what people should do, what B2B companies should do is, can I repackage it into a video script? Can I, make that script? Can I break down that script into 10 different video clips and ask the CEO, or whoever is the founder or whoever is the brand face of your business? Can I ask them to talk about it on LinkedIn, or, upload it on LinkedIn or YouTube or wherever? That is distribution. That is the power of distribution. If you don't think about distribution when you think about content strategy, I think you're setting up for failure, because your content will sit 6 months down the line. You will get frustrated. You will drop it. You will move to the next project because that's what is the need of the hour. 1 year down the lane, you are burnt out and you want to quit.
Yeah.
So all of these, so there's a lot more to it, but yeah, that's what I feel are the biggest
I,
pieces for a content
yeah, I think
strategy to
I,
go right.
I agree to it. So I mean, I've also spent similar to you, right? Like 19 years in B2B tech marketing. The number one mistake that most of them do, right, especially when it comes to content, if they want to scale an organic, like for example, people want to focus on SEO, right? They straight away think that I have to optimize for volume or I have to go do a lot of backlinks. Probably have to do a lot of off page and stuff like that, right? And that's typically what I see. People generally, without even thinking of who the audience is, right? They kind of start optimizing writing for some of these keywords, which is not even there's no intent on some of these keywords, right? Number one. And I've seen 90% of the companies, they kind of do an off page, and there's no relevancy to off page, and there's no relevancy to backlinking, right? Because when I actually typically ask them the question that why are you doing this backlink, are these audience that kind of reading this, let's say, backlinked articles or blogs, right? Like which typically go and ask people to backlink, right? So fundamentally people have no answers to it, and they generally say that, oh, okay, there's a huge DA, that's the reason why I'm doing it, right? It's okay. I mean, you can do it for DA, you can do it for traffic, but end of the day, what really matters is, right, is it my audience, is my audience, do you have this problem? Am I writing for this problem? Am I writing for this particular solution that I'm trying to solve? Are the right audience reading, and are you bringing the right audience into your funnel, right? That's the typical question that everybody as a content marketer should ask themselves again and again. And I think I've traditionally I've seen a lot of people create a lot of content without having that context of, we call that in SaaS, right? We call ICP, right? So without writing for ICP, without having that thought process of where your audience is, like where are they, which are the channels they are active, without that research, whatever you write doesn't make sense, right? For a number of companies, for a company that let's say I've done a little bit of work with, consulting, right? They were selling to CFOs, and we did an initial research and found that CFOs are not active on LinkedIn, and it doesn't make any sense to spend a lot of money on LinkedIn, even on a organic strategy or a paid social, which is like, paying a lot of money on LinkedIn, right? So, but let's say if you're selling to sales guys, if you're selling to marketers, they're actually very active on LinkedIn, right? It makes a lot of sense to create content around LinkedIn, right? So you're absolutely right. I think having that kind of a mindset, having that thought process, and initially identifying, doing that initial research, and finding out, listening to sales calls will actually, help you come up with a proper content strategy. So when it comes to that, right, do you have a framework that you typically use, or you said, okay, first I do research, I try to understand my SCP, right? And then do you have a process after that? Do you have any kind of a process? Do you have like a 3-step or a 4-step process that you follow while you're writing a piece of article or a content or a landing page, right?
Yeah, we of course we do. So it's a so the moment you figure out where, like, it all starts from the buyer research. And um, so what you should ideally do is, when you figure out what you want to write, how you figure that out is, how much of my content should go for bottom of the funnel, how much should I write it for the middle of the funnel, how much should I do it for the top of the funnel now. And it all comes down to what problems are you trying to solve. So if you're trying to solve about conversions, then you should write more about bottom of the funnel. If you're solving for traffic, if you're trying to get more
Hmm.
traffic, you should write top of the funnel. So ultimately it depends on what you want to do. So the first step is figuring out, what am I trying to solve here. So that is part of the framework. Once you figured out what you're doing, then go back. Let's assume that you're trying to solve for bottom of the funnel. Bottom of the funnel
Hmm.
content typically is comparison pages or case studies, or how did I, or solving very minute, very specific problems. Like, for example, somebody could be writing, how do I mail merge on Gmail, or very specific use cases. That is bottom of the funnel, because at that stage the buyer is almost come to a conclusion that, yes, I need the solution. I have checked out different vendors. Now I have started comparing. Now I'm starting to compare features, prices. I'm like on the verge of deciding. Now help me decide. So at that time, the trust factor becomes very important. The credentials are very important. So any material like case studies, testimonials, these are going to tilt the favor in your scale. So maybe if you could arrange a call for the buyer with somebody, with an existing customer that you have, nothing like it. And you need not even be in the call. You just introduce them, leave, and that's where you have created content. Record the call, maybe use it in some webinar, or repackage it. But that's how you are actually creating content. So that's the first framework. The second step is, that's the first part of the framework. The second part is, start doing it. Once you started doing it, start publishing it, start putting it out on social media, putting it out on your blog or wherever you're publishing it. When you start doing this, what will happen is, you will start measuring the results. Now, the moment I talk about results, people start thinking about metrics. What metrics I should do. So a lot of times people get engrossed in metrics. When you enter into these calls, into these meetings, Karthik, I'm sure you would have seen sales and marketing
Yeah.
teams. They bring 50 different metrics. Now, it doesn't have to be so complicated. Just go after 2 or 3 metrics, like, time spent on the page, or number of leads that you've signed up, number of qualified leads, how many leads actually spoke, how many leads did
Hmm.
the sales speak to, what kind of conversations had. Dive into the details instead of looking at 50 different metrics. Look at 5 or 6 very good, very clean, simple metrics that you can measure, that people can understand. goal that you're going to, you want to improve that metric. That is how a metric should be selected. Then you start, once you understood the metric, that's the second step that I said, you start working towards making it better. So let's say a particular blog drove you so much of traffic. That means that that's doing well. So that means we should go deeper into the topic. Go to SEMrush, Ahrefs, dive deeper into those topics. Can I pick even more keywords within that? Can I write more BOFU, bottom of the funnel content around it? And can I start distributing it? Can I ask my founders to talk about it on a webinar? Can I invite my peer group and talk about that topic? That is how it becomes, that is how the content starts taking shape. So first is research the topic, second is write about it, third is measure, and fourth step is repeat. And also I'll also add one more thing. By repeat, I mean do what is working for you. Keep working,
Mm.
keep hitting it hard. Keep hitting the same stuff that's already working for you. So if bite-sized videos are working for you, do it more often, because they'll drive leads. Anybody in the organization need not post on LinkedIn, but definitely the founders, the CMOs, the chief product officers, people like them, when they post, it adds a lot of trust factor, especially from their personal accounts, company pages. That adds a lot of trust. See, because everybody is sending emails, Karthik, these days. Everybody's, so
Yeah,
you are aware, like you would have spent at least 1 million emails till date. How many emails got opened up?
yeah,
That's where marketing is, like, you have to think a little out of the box and do things that are, working, help people build communities, and that gives them results. So yeah, so research, create or produce a content, measure, and repeat. Those are the four
got
things
it.
that I
Yeah,
would say.
excellent. Right. So the first thing, I think the first takeaway on this, right? So you mentioned about whether you want to write for typically top of the funnel or mid of the funnel, bottom of the funnel, right? So a lot of the problems that I've also solved as a marketer is that people generally don't even know why they want to, let's say, create content, right? Number one. So when it comes to, let's say based on my experience, right, a lot of them think that they have to do blogs, but they don't even know why they want to do blogs, right? So they think that, okay, writing blogs is going to give them results, right? So writing blogs is typically doesn't give them results, right? So writing blogs is you write blogs, and those blogs are typically top of the funnel. You create a lot of content around so that people can actually know who you are and bring them onto a page, and then from there you have to figure out how to convert them, right? So these are typically blog traffic is mostly navigational, mostly informational, right? There, but hardly transactional, and probably maybe there is less than couple of maybe 2-3% are transactional, but predominantly they are navigational, informational, right? So they come in search of something, then they look for it, they read about it, and then they go back, right? So there's no action, typically, right? So I agree on that. And of course, understanding why you need to create content and at what stage, what is the problem you're trying to solve, and create content for that problem you're trying to solve. People generally want to create content just for the sake of it, right? And they don't even think about why do they want to create content. In a typical situation, for example, if you're running an ad, the problem that you have to solve for an ad in terms of conversion is have a good landing page, right? Have an excellent landing page, have a converting landing page where anybody who's searching for a let's say a keyword comes on that landing page and tries to fill a form, right? And so the basic level of objective, the immediate objective, somebody should come on the landing page and fill a form, not like get a sale done on the landing page, right? So I think you're absolutely right in terms of explaining that process. Create content based on requirement, based on what is the current requirement. If you need a lot of traffic, create top of the funnel. If you need to convert, then probably create middle, bottom of the funnel content. And if you think that your conversion is not happening, then like predominantly create a lot of bottom of the funnel content, which is like case studies and having some kind of an authority, right? Like I said, comparison pages, alternatives, and stuff like that. Right. So uh, you've spent about 2 decades in content, right? Um, what do you think during your early stages, right? What mistake you did, and let's say what are the best practices you wish you would have known earlier, right? So probably think there's a same question, right? What mistakes you did, and what do you think you would have known earlier? So if you know the one, then probably you know the other as well, right? So what is your advice for let's say early stage marketers, early stage content marketers, right? Maybe 2-3 years experience, right? What do you think they should do, and what do you think they should not do?
I think one mistake that I did is uh, when you are bootstrapped or when you're doing it without any budget, without a lot of budgets. You don't invest in tools. That's a big mistake. That's like in the short run, maybe you'll be able to create content using Google's signals and all that. But in the long run, you need proper tools. You need proper keyword tools like a SEMrush or an Ahrefs or whatever. I mean, whatever it takes to write, because it's very difficult. You can always say that SEMrush and Ahrefs have their own algorithm bias and all those arguments, but to rank properly, to write properly, to guide you in that particular direction, you need the right tools, and that also includes tools like Grammarly or Jasper or um, whatever writing tools you need. But I think that is something that I did, and I remember writing one blog. It's still probably ranking on the first page of Google, but I just used the Google intent signals to write, and
Mm,
I probably repackaged what was already there in the top 5 or 10 blogs on the first page of Google, and I probably did a skyscraper
mm,
technique, and I wrote better than almost everybody that they did. And yeah, it naturally got ranked and probably is. But the point is that is not what we should I should have done. What I should have done is I should have gone and spoken to people who are experiencing that problem, who that blog was meant for. Ask
mm,
them, what do you think? What is your problem? Can you give me a quote, or then send it to them. You know what? I asked you this question. We spoke about this a few weeks back. I wrote a blog on it. Do you think it helps you? Does this help you? So that kind of an approach where people want dozens of leads or maybe thousands of leads, but it doesn't work like that. It's winning one customer at a time, every customer at a time. That's the biggest thing that we should work for. So with one blog, don't aim to get millions of dollars of revenue. No, it doesn't. It's not working. It's not going to work. What you need to do is get the right tools in place. Ask people what is it that is holding them back. What is it that is not letting them do work efficiently, or having an issue in their work at their work. Something that helps them work better, and get into a relationship with them. Talk to them as often as possible. Even if you come across something that you think is helpful to them, send it to them. That is how you start knowing them better, and you get into their network, and they start sharing things with you. They'll introduce you to more interesting contacts. So content marketers today, Karthik, I think they think that, oh, okay, I've got a laptop, I've got maybe one or two tools, I have everything to work. No, you don't have anything. What really matters is going there and talking to those people to whom it matters. That is where it works. So I think, given a chance, if I were to rewind the clock, I would do all of this. I would first, just from day one, I'll be talking to people, Karthik.
correct. But for people, let's say for an early stage marketer who doesn't have an access to, let's say, talking to your prospects, your customers, right? What do you think they should do? Because a lot of them don't have access, and a lot of them are, let's say, freelancers, and a lot of the content folks are freelancers now. In this situation, right, I don't even have an access to somebody like a prospect, but you're a senior marketer, you probably have access to them, right? But for a junior marketer, they don't have access. So, what are your suggestion for them in terms of how should they handle the situation?
Good question, actually. But it doesn't have to be so difficult. So today, people are building careers using micro SaaS. People are selling them for so much after building small tools, right? Now, which just goes to show how strong the community around is. Remember, no man
Hmm,
is an island. So it takes is spend 3 months on Twitter or on LinkedIn and talk to your peer group. Introduce them to what is the solution you're building, or ask them very specific questions about the product that you're building, about the industry that you're in, about the solution that you're doing, and ask them what are they seeing. That will give you a lot of clues about what you need to write, or what you need to produce, what you need to create. Don't do anything. So of course you will not have customers on day one, but you'll have probably a lot of support group people, the peer group, the founders and CMOs who are there, and on a similar thing. And Slack is available to everybody. Get into one of these groups, chat with them, help them. Only then you can get value. Tell them that, hey, you know what, I saw this, I think I might have a solution for this, and then get on a call with them, and then ask them your thing. So that is how you start collaborating. If you make the blunder of, oh, you know what, I want to absorb from this well, I want to take water from this well, and I want to leave, it doesn't work. You have to contribute water to that well for you to be able to draw from it when you need it. So it has to be a two-way relationship.
Yeah, I agree. So, but again, it took me, not to contradict, right? But again, it took me probably about 16, 17 years to do what you're doing right now, or what have done. So, give you a simple like background story. So, I also, when I started consulting, so I, I thought, okay, there's a problem, and then I'll try to solve a problem. Typically, services business consulting, right? With the experience, you can solve a lot of problems for early stage, mid stage, like whichever types of companies that you want to consult for. So I started joining a lot of groups on Slack, right? And then it happened that whenever somebody's asking a question, I generally go tend to answer those questions. And people started asking for one-on-ones as well, right? So I started giving one-on-ones without anything, any expecting nothing in return. So it started doing a lot of one-on-one. But then for me, it just happened. Okay, it was not a conscious decision to talk to people to understand what the problem is in the market, versus me trying to just answer questions, and then eventually you have a conversation with people, and then what kind of problems they have, like let's say for example what kind of problems marketers face, right? So at certain point I must have spoken to maybe 1,000 2,000 people around, maybe I don't know, and then now I know some of the problems that companies face, right, in marketing, based on working with them or based on talking to them. So that's again, for me, it's a good way to kind of start. But then, as a content marketer, I agree with you. So at least put an effort. If your audience is somewhere, maybe reach out to them and ask for help. Right? Don't sell it to them. Just ask for help. Ask them, hey, I'm solving this problem. Would you have a couple of minutes? Do you have like 5 minutes? I have some questions. Right? If you probably reach out to them, maybe three or four will. If you reach out to 100 people, I'm pretty sure three or four will definitely respond, and then they'll come on a call. They'll tell you what problems they're solving. I mean, the problems that they have, right? So it's tricky as well, and it's sometimes, if you look at it, sometimes for us who have done it, it's easy. For people who have not done it, so it looks very complicated and tricky. But I agree with you, right? So yeah. Um, so um, if given a chance, right? Will you go back and do content, or will you do something else?
That's
Push
that's a
Karthik
good
back to
question.
15, 20 years back, right? So what will you do? And what will you choose?
Um, Probably I would do content. Karan. I cannot I cannot imagine myself doing anything other than content, um, because because uh, because I seriously believe in it. It has been my passion.
Right.
I remember my father reading the newspaper right in the morning while helping out my mom in the kitchen, and he used to carry this newspaper, and he used to have this habit of reading this. He won't start the day without reading the newspaper. So, and somehow, kids inculcate the same habits that their parents have. Even to this day, I start my day with a coffee and the newspaper. Without that, my day doesn't start. And I don't think I would have done anything else other than creating content. I am trying my hand at video a bit. Is the written word for anything? I mean,
So
because there's nothing, because you are you. Like somebody said this, right? I don't know. I think it was Oscar Wilde that was it Oscar Wilde? I don't know, but he said this. Be yourself. Everybody else is taken. So I think your individual perspective
So,
matters as far
got
as I'm concerned.
it. So, yeah, it's a good one. Maybe I expected a different answer, but yeah. So assume a situation, right, where you have to start again. Probably, I know in a previous company, I think you have scaled the website traffic from zero to probably what 200K or something like that, right? And I've seen that happen with you over a period of probably 1.5 years to 2 years, right? So, given that a chance again. What strategies will you typically take to scale to again to a probably 100K traffic in about a year, right? You've probably done it once. If you have to do it probably two times faster, what will you do?
I think one mistake that we did is we spread out way too thin.
Mm,
We wanted all the keywords that were there, and no organization in the world, even the richest organization in the world, even if they want, they cannot get all the keywords in their favor, at least as far as a business is concerned. That was one big mistake that we made. I will not spread myself thin. I will choose three or maybe max five keywords that I want to go after, and write as deep or create content or videos or whatever as deep as I can. I'll go. I'll I'll probably leave no stone unturned as far as each of those keywords. How I write it is a different thing. I'll talk
mm,
about that
mm.
later. How I scale it is a different thing. But I will leave no stone unturned to make sure that I explore as much deep as I can. in those topics. So that is something that I would do. Now that's number one.
Hmm.
That I wish we could have done that. Because we spread too thin and we were going after so many keywords, maybe hundreds of them, and we couldn't even gain authority except for two or three. We didn't gain authority, and that really didn't matter on the pipeline, Karthik. That
Hmm.
was my main problem. So if somebody asked me that, okay, you wrote this, has it affected your pipeline? Has it influenced people to sign up and have a have a conversation with the sales reps? I used to draw a flag. I used to draw a blank there. So that's not what I want to be. I instead, go after keywords that align closely with the business and write the hell out of it. That's what I would do. Number one. Second is, like I said earlier in this conversation, Karthik, and that's distribution. Really think about distribution very hard. And distribution, people think, pushing it in a newsletter or publishing on LinkedIn is distribution. That's not distribution. Distribution is about how can you make it bite sized? How can you make it really worthy of it? For example, this conversation that we're having, can we break this down into very simple 1 minute clips and put it out on as a YouTube short or on LinkedIn as a 1 minute bite? That's distribution. That's the power of. That's how you start thinking strategically about it instead of creating multiple pieces of content and thinking you. So these are two things that I would surely try to solve on day one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in continuation with that question, would you choose a 200K traffic or 20K traffic? Situation is hypothetically, let's say 200K is giving you $1 million of business, and 200K traffic is probably giving you 800K worth of business, right? So which one would you choose?
Which one is giving me $1 million worth of business, Karthik?
Say, let's say 200K traffic is probably given you 800K worth of business, and 20K traffic has given you $1 million. 20K has given you $1 million. 200K has given you 800K. So you're probably 200K short. Which one would you choose?
I would go with the 20K. In fact, I would go with 2K
So
or maybe even just 200.
if you this question,
Yeah.
maybe if I'd asked this question maybe 5 years, 10 years back, what would have been your answer?
Yeah. Yeah, it would have been
So
obviously
the
200K,
yeah.
because you know what? You're like the kid in the candy store, right? You want all the candies, you want all the toffees and chocolates, right? But that's not how it works. You just need two or three candies at max at one go, and after that you're going to forget the candy store. What really matters is how much are you able to solve buyer problems? Are they really happy? Can you get into a conversation and almost, you know, put a hand around them and say, "Hey, I solved this for you. Are you happy?"
So,
That's enough. The sale will come.
so while we talk about this, right, there's a classic example I can give you. So recently I've been working with a company, big company, 15, close to 13 million ARR, well-known brand. I don't want to take the name. So we found, I mean, we want to scale. I mean, there the responsibility was to scale organic traffic, right? And I predominantly have to focus on, I mean, they scale Google Ads as well as SEO, right? So when we looked at SEO, when we looked at traffic, right, there were predominantly few blogs were giving maximum traffic, right? They were like one blog was performing pretty well, okay, in terms of traffic, like I don't know, maybe 6, 7K traffic on a month, something like that. So when we looked at that blog, we listed all the blogs that gave all of this traffic. Then we figured, like we found out none of these blogs give pipeline, right? It's just vanity metric, right? Then we thought, okay, we'll optimize this blog. The next question to ask is, okay, if you're not getting good leads or pipeline from these blogs, what do we do? The next obvious question is, how do we optimize this, right? Then if we talked about how do we optimize, we said, okay, there's no interlinking, there's no lead magnets, and we'll figure out, time spent on the page and stuff like that, right? But reduce the bounce rate, blah, 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 all of those typical optimizing stuff we were talking about. And then the content person, she's also pretty new. So we figured that eventually that whatever we do, that blog is not going to give results, right? That blog has nothing to do with the services you offer. It's just plain vanity metric. And then we started doing the same thing, same exercises, and eventually it turned out to that none of the blogs were giving like leads, right? And then this whole point of organic scaling to, let's say, 30, 40,000 traffic is absolutely useless, right? So end of the day, the typical situation, I tend to measure some of these numbers, right? So as soon as I go in, start consulting or let's say start working with somebody, I take some of these channels and eventually create a report dashboard and figure out how many of them. The only question that I ask is how many of them are opportunities, how many of them are closed one. It's okay if it's closed lost as well, that's fine. But how many of them are opportunities, how many of them are closed one? Then you start looking at pipeline. Then you'll realize that in 90% of the situation, they're not good leads. They're probably junk and they're probably bad leads, non-ICP leads, right? So given a chance 10 years back, even I would have said the same that I want 200K traffic, right? In my profile, in my resume, in my previous company, I also scaled, right? I did programmatic SEO, scaled them to 200K traffic, 250K traffic a month. So that situation, I've, like happily said, oh, I've scaled this to 200K traffic. But when I look back, actually, the one thing that matters is not that traffic, right? At the end of the day, if the company has probably scaled, if your pipeline has doubled because of that, or if you have scaled, let's say from 10K to 15K and you have doubled your pipeline, that is what is like that's what matters at the end of the day. And that's what CEOs also cares, and that's what like marketers, senior marketers like VP of marketing now cares, right? And early stage folks generally have the tendency to work towards like these vanity metrics, right? I think yeah, you're absolutely right on that. So
Yes. Yep.
uh, probably, I mean, as a marketer, I thought, okay, I was doing everything perfectly, right? But then I realized that nothing is perfect, right? You can never create a perfect campaign. You can never create a perfect for somebody. It could be perfect for somebody, but it's not perfect for like let's say another person, right? So there's always this cognitive bias that people see something in a different way, even colors, right? And especially when it comes to experimenting, people see everything differently, and everybody has a priority. Everybody understands different languages and differently, right? Country wise, regionally, or culturally, right? There are all of these challenges typically. So as a marketer, I think one thing that I understood is that the more experiments that you do, the better chance you will see that result, right? And then stick on to something and then keep changing the other variables. So typical A/B testing, experimenting always works like that. So one thing that has worked for you really, really well, which you think is very stupid, but it probably has worked well. One thing in a normal situation has worked pretty well, like an experiment that worked pretty well, right? It could be a small change in a landing page, or it could be a tweak in your content strategy, or maybe a tweak in a distribution strategy, or some form of a CTA, right? Whatever it could be. Tell us one thing that worked for you, what worked really well for you, and one thing you thought will work, but then it didn't work.
So one thing that can sound foolish, but we recently started seeing some bit of success for that for a client that we're working for, and that is writing content based on AI based using AI tools like ChatGPT. Um, that that piece is really taken off for us. So how we do it is very simple. We found out the keywords that we are not doing well, that we're not that we're not that give us some amount of traffic, but in some form they are also aligned to the business. So what we did is we figured out all the bottom of the funnel keywords that we can probably aim for, and we came up with very detailed prompts for this. We wrote very detailed prompts. Uh, we described the persona, we described the language, the tone that should be having, we described as much as inputs that could give, so that the output doesn't sound robotic. And when we prompted ChatGPT, we got great stuff. Now all that we had to do is it took less than, let's say, maybe 1 hour or maybe 2 hours to create a decent blog of about 2,000 words. And what we did is, so we didn't stop there. We made sure that uh, the headline was great, the H2s were great, the description, the meta was there in place, and we set up a process that let's try and experiment this, do this for 100 keywords and see what happens. And we had the interlinkings in place. We had a proper human editing it, so it looked as if it was created by a proper human being. And what happened is it gave us good traffic because we were solving for traffic. So it really, I can't say the numbers out here, but definitely it increased the traffic for certain keywords that we wanted, and that's actually giving us results. In some instances, I've even heard that there were sales conversations based on some of these keywords that we went after. So that was, maybe you could call it a foolish thing to do, using ChatGPT to create content that humans buy, but nevertheless, it's actually working for us in some ways. That's number one. The second, I remember you asked me about a not so intuitive change. So we used to, so I used to write landing pages, and back then there was no
Hmm.
ChatGPT. So um, two things come to my mind that I remember. Uh, and my CEO said, you know what, go and write landing pages, competitor landing pages or alternative landing pages. And how do you write an alternative landing page without getting into a demo or experiencing the solution, or seeing the solution for yourself? How do you write a page? Like, how do you know about the product? Just by looking at their pages or videos, you're not going to do so. It was very important for us to, experience a product, try it firsthand, maybe do it try it for about a couple of days, and then you figure out
Mm-hmm.
where the issue is, or sit with the product manager, at least bare minimum. Now, other than that, doing anything of this sort is not going to work out. So the difference is not going to come out. You're just going to write pages after pages of content for a landing page, but it's not going to convert. People are not going to get convinced. So that was a real mistake. I mean, just guessing and hoping that
Mm-hmm.
the competitor product is not as good as yours, and having that bias is not going to work. You have to go use the product, or at least talk to your product manager why he or she thinks your product is better than that. That's number one. Second is screenshots. I mean, I cannot say this. I've seen the
Mm-hmm.
largest B2B companies, Karthik, companies that have revenues of maybe upwards of 4 or 5 billion a year. They have products, great customers, great labels, great logos to go after that they have. But one basic fundamental error that I've seen them do is, they do not have product screenshots on their landing page. How do you sell? How do you how do you help people feel the product or experience the product? People who imagine somebody landing on that page, the CMO or this, like you said earlier during the conversation about CFOs not on LinkedIn. The CFO is never going to land on that page. The CFO is probably the CFO's manager or somebody in his team is going to come to that page and recommend that to the CFO, right? Now, how do they make that recommendation unless they see the screenshot? you and it was like, some image that had nothing to do with the copy that you're writing
Mm.
on it. So these are very fundamental errors, I think companies still continue to do.
Yeah.
These are things that I have seen
In-
in my career,
Interesting. Yeah. So
Karthik.
I've done probably hundreds, thousands of experiments, right? So one thing that always worked for me when it comes to conversion is again, right, this is one situation, right? This is a unicorn right now. So we kind of made, they had, I think, 6 or 7 or 8 fields or something, right? So I practically reduced that to one. And so they were getting about 600 to 650 signups a month on an average on the website. The traffic was huge. And the one change kind of gave us probably eight additional 200 leads, right? Which is almost 15 to 20% over and above what they were getting, right? So that I've seen work pretty well. And not all experiments work for everybody, right? So in the other situation, I propose a similar change, and I always do that, right? Make it the one thing as a marketer that I want to convey again is make it easy for people to take an action, make it easy for people to buy from you, make it easy for people to understand what you're trying to sell, make it easy for people to basically write pretty simple in a simple language so that everybody can understand irrespective of whatever regions they come from. So as long as you're making it easy for people as a prospect for a customer, they'll tend to buy from you or become a lead or whatever actions they're trying to do, right? And we did the same experiment in other company, and they did a split experiment, right? One with a bigger, let's say, number of fields, and one with lesser number of fields, right? And they actually saw a better conversion on the more number of fields, right? Because the qualification was better there, and then they kind of they were sticking onto that, more fields, right? And that's one instance. I think the experiment has probably worked in some places, not worked in some places, and when I was a full-time VP of marketing, I used to wonder why the button CTA color change would create such an impact. I thought it was stupid. And then when I realized that you can never consider anything stupid, right? Then we changed around, we played around with. So I did a research and I found that orange is the most converting color, probably followed by yellow or something. I don't know, but I remember still orange is the most converting color, probably followed by yellow, red, and stuff, right? So when we started experimenting with different colors, we saw a change in pattern, right? So whatever you call it, especially when it comes to experiment, right? You can call something very very stupid, but it's actually not stupid. And if you judge it based on what you know, then you're wrong, right? You don't judge based on what you know. So opinions in marketing, for me, I think opinions don't matter, right? As long as you kind of go with data, or at some level you kind of do that experiment and figure out what is working, what is not working. So I always believe in that thing of A/B testing, right? Like figure out, do one here, and then do a split test, like 50-50, 60-40, whatever combination works for you, right? So yeah. Um, so how do you how do you become really good at content?
It's it just comes down to very simple formula, Karthik, and that's consistency. Uh, you just have to keep at it every day, day in, day out. Do it every day, and you will crack it. It's not rocket science. It's so that's what I tell people, right? I don't know how to code. I'm not a coder. So, but what I think I can do is I can write better. Maybe I have a bit of better emotional quotient versus some other people who are just starting off because I understand emotions better thanks to my experience. But that helps you stay grounded and understand your ICPs and write every day for them and be inquisitive. So unless you do that consistency factor, so this happens. It. Uh, they talk about this always in sports. No matter how talented you are, unless you turn up for training every day, you're not going to win the medal or you're not
Yeah,
going to win the game there.
yeah.
What matters is consistency. And I remember this
Can I
by
add a word? I think
this quote.
consistency and discipline are pretty important to
Yeah,
probably on anything, right? Doesn't matter if it is content or whatever you do. I think that these are the two most important things that you have to follow and do day in, day out to become good at
yeah,
anything.
you become good at it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember this by one of this famous basketball players who's no more. His name is Kobe
Cool,
Bryant,
Brent. Yeah.
and he used to say this. Yeah, he used to say this, and that is that train hard. And he even has a very famous video on it. He says this: wake up at 4 a.m. or
Three,
whatever.
three,
Start
three.
training
Yeah,
from five
yeah.
to seven.
Exactly.
3 a.m. Yeah, whatever,
Yeah,
4 to 6, train from 4 to 6, come back, eat breakfast, take
yeah.
rest, and then again go 8 to 10 train. Again, come back, take rest, eat lunch,
So,
again train from 12 to 2, 4 to 6. And he says that keep doing it for days, weeks, months, for years. And he said that when you do that, it becomes such a big muscle memory that your competitors cannot ever outskill you or outmatch you. One summer of training for them is not going to help them
yeah,
do that. And he was a living example of that. So
yeah.
I think
I'm,
consistency matters. I mean, and I'm trying to do that now. Cultivate it
yeah.
actively right. But yeah, that's what
I'm
I
also a
feel.
huge fan of Kobe Bryant. Like you said, so there was this classic example, right? Somebody in his team who kind of wanted to outtrain Kobe. So he thought, okay, he'll wake up at, let's say, 4 o'clock and go to the training, right? And Kobe was there. He's already finished his training for the first start. And he's like, man, you can never beat me, right? So it's a classic example of, some people like Kobe Bryant who's hard worker. Like for us, I think cricket fraternity, Virat Kohli, right? And I like Ronaldo, right? And these are classic examples of hard work and consistency. And before that, I think I like Sachin because he was actually a god, but also he was a hard worker, right? I think consistency, discipline is the key word, right? Yeah. So, so for listeners, one word of advice do you have for everybody who's listening when it comes to content?
I think I would go back to one of the things that you brought up, Karthik, and that is never fail to experiment. Nothing is stupid. Nothing ever, unless, and the best thing about this is when you experiment, you learn. There are newer cells, there are newer clogs in your brain that open up when you start experimenting. There are so many things that happen when you do it on your own that no amount of TED talk, whatever ways you have uh, to upskill yourself, it's going to matter. What ultimately matters is start doing it.
Right.
Try experimenting. You can fail. Go fail 100 times. That the lessons that you learn will make you look like a hero. So that's what they also say this, right? I mean, players, you can look very ugly in the nets. You can look very ugly in practice. It doesn't matter. Nobody's watching you. Nobody's watching you. It doesn't really matter. But when the day arrives and you've practiced that, maybe, so Bruce Lee said this,
Hmm.
right? That he doesn't fear anybody who has 10,000 kicks, but he fears somebody who's practiced the same kick 10,000
Yeah,
times. So
yeah,
when you do that, when you start doing that, the knowledge that you will have is just, I mean, day in day out, you're like, for example, you're writing a blog, right? I mean, you're writing the hook, you're writing the headline. I mean, you want to be the best. For the first 3 months you will fail, but then slowly you will realize that you're writing the best hooks, you're writing the best headlines, you're writing the best introductions that you will be proud of 3 years down the line. So I think that's
yeah.
my
I think
biggest piece. Never be shy
so.
to experiment.
Yeah. So when it comes to copy and writing and stuff, right? I never thought I'd start writing publicly, right? And then it just happened. I started writing when I was let's say full time. I was heading marketing somewhere. Then I realized that I have to be on LinkedIn, and I started writing there. And I mostly had a ghostwriter, and things were okay, average, right? And then I started consulting, and then I started writing on my own, and then suddenly, like initially, it was hardly anything, right? There were hardly engagements, there was hardly any likes and comments, right? And then I think last year I had three content which was viral, which had about million and a half. Each content went viral. Like I had probably 13, 14,000 comments, and each of those content went viral. I had 5 million views on those, right? And I was always used to wonder like who used to read my copy or who used to read my content. And I've been fairly failed. I've failed a lot in my career writing some of these copies, right? So I've spent a lot of time doing the business development and then marketing. Early days, marketing is all about like calling and emailing people, right? And that's the only way you could generate leads. Now you have another option. Like you have plenty of options to generate, demand leads, right? So I used to write. I thought I used to write good emails, but then those emails hardly gave me any responses, right? So I thought I suck at content, I suck at copy. And then like one day there were a lot of people I get hundreds of DMs like whenever some content goes viral, right? And then right, then you realize, like you said, be consistent. At some point you will get that, right? But then if you think that you will succeed at the first try or the second try or the third or the fourth or the 10th try or the 100th try, you're never going to make it, right. It'll happen at some point. Nobody knows when that some point will come, but it'll happen if you're consistent, if you're patient, and if you keep trying again and again, right. So that is, I mean, no matter what, if you're not good at anything, if you're doing that consistently day in day out, you will be good at, right. You'll probably be good at that. So I'm not a content marketer, but then some of my copies, right, that gets a lot of views, a lot of impressions, millions of views in some cases, right. So yeah, I think my piece of advice is the same as you. Be consistent. Do that every day. Do that every single day, and become good at that by probably learning the best practices. I would suggest do it, but then at the same time, there are already thousands of people who's already done it. Learn from them, right? Learn from people who's already done it. Like follow people on LinkedIn and follow people on other places, right? There are a lot of playbooks around. There are a lot of playbooks on how to create a template, how to write a good landing page, or how to create a blog content, or how to write, let's say, Google Ads copy, or how to write it on LinkedIn, right? There are a lot of templates. There are a lot of playbooks, right? I think if you're somebody who writes on LinkedIn, if you're somebody who writes blogs, I think it's good to kind of do that research, understand, take the best practices, benchmark your blog, and then keep improving that blog or content or LinkedIn article like again and again, right? But yeah, so I'm definitely with you on that. So you talked about AI. It's probably I want to take it maybe a couple of questions before we close it. You talked about AI. You explained what you did at AI. So for people who are looking or listening, what would you suggest, right? Do you suggest that they should start doing something with ChatGPT, or do you think, let's say, for an early stage marketer or an early stage content writer, what do you think they should do? They should start using ChatGPT to scale their content, or they should probably start doing like basics of content and then leverage ChatGPT at some point, right? What is your suggestion? Yeah, yes, yeah, no, or for an early stage marketer, what should they, or maybe an early stage company, what should they do?
I think the first stage is not definitely ChatGPT. I think the first stage is about, like we spoke earlier, it's
Hmm.
about researching about the ICP understanding and the keywords and all that. And then what you do is, once you have that material with you, what you need to do is um, you need to start drilling using ChatGPT. So you need to start, sorry, identifying which keywords are aligned to your business and which keywords are not aligned to your core business. But still, they are there to create the brand. They are there to create the uh, mind share in the minds of people, in the minds of in the minds of your ICP. So when you segregate them, you realize that, oh, okay, these are the keywords that are very important to me, and these are going to be written by humans. I'll probably get actual people, experts to write this. The other set of keywords is where you can start experimenting with AI. Again, when I said experimenting, it doesn't mean that you just write a prompt, you just write any prompt, put it on ChatGPT, get the output and publish. No, it doesn't work. You still have to have a human working on it, edit it properly, make it sound. So that's why even quality matters when you produce, when you use ChatGPT to produce content. So you can be the smallest of organizations, but having a very strategic approach, having an organized approach to create content both with humans and AI. That is what. So maybe what you could probably do as an experiment is take one pillar page, pick one keyword that's closely aligned to your business, create a solid blog by a human, and you can call that as a pillar page, and then create aligned key, and then create blogs for those aligned keywords using AI, and see and link them back to this pillar page. That is where you can start. You will start seeing results. I don't say that you will actually get ranked into a featured snippet on day one, but that is a start. You will, when you do it for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, you will realize that it's adding more traffic. Sometimes it gets converted into great leads that come from ICPs. But yeah, that is how I would suggest people to
Got it.
go.
Okay. So for what would you suggest is the best channel generally for early stage company to start, for any business to start, right? Where do you think they should invest in, and where do you think they should start? Again, you've talked about this channel. You have to choose a channel based on where your audience is, like where your ICP is, right? That's what you talked about. But in general, let's say a typical situation, if your audience is everywhere, right? Let's say sales and marketing audience, or let's say somebody who's on LinkedIn, somebody who's on Instagram, or somebody who's also searching on Google, or right, those kind of audience, right? And for an early stage company, let's say I have only maybe couple of like 2 lakhs budget, right? What do you think you suggest them do with that budget? That includes like probably people cost as well, right? What do you think is the right way to approach when you have 2 lakhs, when you have 4 lakhs, and when you have 10 lakhs, right? We'll conclude with this question. So, what is your suggestion? Where to put money when you have 2 lakhs budget per month, when you have 4 lakhs budget per month, and when you have 10 lakhs budget per month?
Yeah, so let's say assume it's a B2B company. So when you have 10 lakhs budget, obviously you can go for LinkedIn ads. A bit of, yeah, I mean, that's still expensive, but I would say that gives you a good idea of where you what your people are clicking at. That'll give you very good an indication of where what your ICPs are doing. And by ICPs, I don't mean CFOs, like you said earlier during the conversation, Karthik. CFOs are not going to come to LinkedIn, but it's going to be somebody within their vicinity, or who's going to influence the decision, who's going to be the champion for your product, who's going to be on LinkedIn. That is what you need. You need to sell it to that person, and then slowly work your way up. So I think with budgets, I would definitely say set up the channels for distribution should definitely be, if it's B2B, definitely LinkedIn, start creating content, because it still takes. So you need a Hootsuite or a content distribution platform like Hootsuite, or a Canva, or a SEMrush or Ahrefs, and these kind of tools. You need to create content. So with 2 lakhs budget, don't think too much about paid ads and all. Don't burn your money there. Maybe park maybe 10% of your budget in paid ads, or 5 to 10%, because when you put a small amount of money in your paid ads, what happens is you will get the vibes. You'll get the trend. At least you'll start seeing a pattern, what people are clicking more, and then you use that knowledge. Stop the ad there. Use that knowledge to go back and write content. So yeah, I mean, if you've got 2 lakhs, I think you should just spend on a good writer, on hiring a great writer who can write well, who understands ICP, who knows how to do it, and create great content, and then slowly scale once that writer is able to
Hmm.
sponsor their salary or whatever, or the package that you pay for the tools. When you grow up, then you start investing in more tools, in a CRM probably, or uh, whatever it takes to distribute your content more, or more ads, if you feel that that's what is working. But don't burn your money um, on ads day one. 2 lakhs, no, don't do it. Part some budget, test it, then start scaling. That's the
Got
only.
it.